Shalom! This week we begin the second book of the Torah, the book of Exodus, called in Hebrew the book of names, Sefer Shemot, and known as the book of redemption. This week's portion is the first portion, Parshat Shemot, and really it recounts the earliest recorded history of Am B'nai Yisrael, the nation of Israel, as opposed to simply the children of Israel or the children of Jacob. There's so much to discuss in our portion, spanning so many years, but I'd like to focus on the background of what was going on in Egypt and how Israel transitioned from a family into a nation, as well as the background of Israel's Redeemer, Moshe, whose birth and early years take place in our Parsha. As our portion opens, Torah recounts that Yaakov and Yosef and all his brothers and all of that original generation comprising the 70 souls of Yaakov's family who had come down to Egypt have now died. Now the children of Israel were experiencing, in the midst of their Egyptian sojourn, a population explosion. As we read in verse 7, the children of Israel were fruitful, teemed, increased, and became strong, very, very much so, and the land became filled with them. Our sages teach that Hashem blessed the Jews with great prolificacy, and they produced at an astounding rate. Until now, we knew everybody by name, but this verse signals that a great transition is taking place. Until now, throughout the book of Breshit, and even here in the first 6 verses of Parshat Shemot, we were learning about people who were reckoned as a group of individuals. The stage was set for a nation to be born, but it hadn't appeared yet. In verse 8, we read, "A new king arose over Egypt, who did not know of Yosef. He said to his nation, 'Behold, the nation, the children of Israel, are more numerous and stronger than we. Come, let us outsmart it, lest it become numerous, and it may be that if a war will occur, it too may join our enemies and wage war against us and go up from the land.'" So about this new king who arose, as everyone knows, there's a well-known disagreement amongst our sages. Was he really a new king, or was he just the same old king, just pretending to have never heard of Yosef? Never heard of Yosef, the man who single-handedly saved his nation from catastrophe? That's like saying in American milieu that you never heard of George Washington. But this is actually the prototype of what was to become the repeating cycle of Jewish history. Yosef saves the Egyptians from the brink of extinction. He's not just a fixer, he's a dream maker. He literally makes Pharaoh's dreams come true. And shortly afterwards, he's forgotten and his people are demonized. Sounds familiar. So maybe only his decrees were new. Maybe he just changed his mind and decided he owes nothing to Yosef or his descendants. Or maybe he was the first revisionist historian. So this ingrate king, this Pharaoh, is the first person who called the children of Israel a nation, Am B'nai Yisrael. And mind you, his usage was pejorative, but he was the first to see the Israelites not as individuals, but as a nation. And he was very disturbed. And he said to his nation, "Behold, the Am B'nai Yisrael, the nation of the children of Israel, are greater and mightier than us. Come, let us outsmart it, lest it become numerous, and it may be that if a war will occur, it too may join our enemies and wage war against us and go up from the land." Why is this the verse that first introduces the Israelites as an Am, a nation? This war business is just a shallow excuse to enslave and ultimately attempt to annihilate the Jews. He gave away what's really disturbing him, that they are a nation. Not a religion, a people. A new people are appearing on the stage of history, wonderfully spiritually mighty people who will be changing the course of history and bringing enlightenment and redemption to the world. This is precisely what rattled him so much. So Pharaoh begins to enact decrees, initially to deal with this new Jewish problem. His plan was to stop the people from reproducing. First stage, he put the men to work building storage cities for him, Pithom and Ramses. But as verse 11 states, this work was only for the purpose of afflicting them with their burdens. According to the Midrash, the cities that the Israelites were assigned to build were only a device to keep the people occupied to the point of total physical exhaustion and despair. After working each day on the construction of these 2 cities, the cities would be dismantled, destroyed, so that the Jews would have to start from scratch again the next morning. This pointless work was all designed so that they would be afflicted with their burdens, so that they'd be too wasted to reproduce. they would be discouraged and their morale and stamina would be lowered. Yet despite this, as much as they would afflict it, so it would increase and so it would spread out, the verse states. The Torah is here informing us that this new nation was not operating according to the heretofore established laws of nature. They seem to be drawing strength from a realm above nature. It's called divine blessing. Jews were still being born, and so the Egyptians became disgusted because of the children of Israel. Therefore, verse 13 tells us, Egypt enslaved the children of Israel with crushing hardness. They embittered their lives with hard work, with mortar and with bricks, and with every labor of the field. All their labors that they performed with them were with crushing hardness. As Rashi explains, with hard work that breaks the body, they all became brickmakers, an entire nation working in the mud. This is a new tactic. As our sages ask, and were they all working in the fields and not in the cities? But rather, the verse is hinting to the decree that the men must sleep in the fields, away from home, so that they will not reproduce. This is another stage in the attempt to prevent the establishment of this nation. Break their bodies so that all they can think about is their personal pain and their awful physical state, and all their attention will be focused on their immediate physical survival. And when you try to imagine the ancient Egypt that we're describing here, try to forget the movie images that may be stuck in your mind, Elizabeth Taylor playing Cleopatra, or Cecil B. DeMille, or even Disney's The Prince of Egypt. This is the original evil empire, Orwellian, dystopian, totalitarian. In a nod to our century's worst nightmare, an entire nation participated in the total subjugation and dehumanization of a people, employing institutionalized and systematic state-sponsored physical and psychological torture, and ultimately genocide. But the children kept on being born, in the merit of the righteous women of that generation who were not discouraged and who motivated their broken husbands to procreate, who came out to the fields at the end of the day to greet their husbands because they understood that they had a divinely appointed role to continue to bring the nation of Israel into the world. And they understood that the nation will be born through families. Pharaoh also understood that the nation rises up from the family unit. Today, in our modern world, the family unit is under relentless attack. It was Pharaoh who was the first to understand that in order to undermine the redemptive process personified by Israel, and in order to disable and defeat the spirit of mankind, you attack and unravel the family unit, and all will fall apart. So in another eerily familiar nod to our own time, the Midrash relates that among the various types of affliction that the Egyptians made the children of Israel suffer, Pharaoh instituted that men should be given women's tasks and women should be given men's work. Was he perhaps attempting to trigger gender dysphoria, commonly known as gender identity disorder? Like today's radical left, he knew that there was no better way to destroy the family than to blur the lines between men and women. But Pharaoh is still not satisfied because the program is still not working. Now he instructs the midwives to kill the baby boys immediately at birth. But the midwives explain to him that the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are lively. They give birth even before the midwives arrive. What a powerful verse. The midwives are telling Pharaoh, essentially, that the nation of Israel is a different sort of people, made of something else. Their very life force is different. So into all this trauma, untold suffering, pain, and chaos, suddenly enter Moshe. Moshe, who is eternally known as Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher, whose name will now be prominently featured in every single Torah portion, save for one, till the end of Sefer Devarim, Deuteronomy. Who is this man Moshe? Listen for a moment to what the sages teach about Moshe. Moshe, the Redeemer of Israel, who delivered the people out of slavery, who ascended Mount Sinai and received the Torah on behalf of all of Israel for all time. Moshe is called the head, the chief of all the prophets, both those who came before him and those who would ever come after him. Moshe, who saw clearly, not through a vision and not in allegories. Moshe, who spoke with Hashem face to face like one who speaks with a friend, about whom God himself testified that he is trustworthy in all my house. Moshe, who loved every Jew as himself and was willing to sacrifice his life for them. Moshe, about whom the Midrash states, Moshe is Israel and Israel is Moshe. Moshe, who was the banner of Israel. Moshe, whom Hashem pointed over all of Israel and to whom Hashem trusted all the secrets of the Torah, all the world's wisdom, all the secrets of all knowledge and understanding. But where did he come from? What do we know about Moshe, about his origins? He reaches great levels, but prior to this, Torah provides very limited background. His birth is described in as modest a manner as can be. A man went from the house of Levi and took a daughter of Levi. The woman conceived and gave birth to a son. As the parsha progresses, we learn a little bit more about him. But here, Torah suffices to emphasize that he was a man, born of a woman. As Harry Chapin sang, he came to the world in the usual way. This is a great differentiation from all the mythological heroes and gods whose birth is not described in human terms. Torah teaches that man works and grows from the bottom up, not the opposite direction. Moshe's goal, which remains our goal today, was to raise up nature to its godly source, for life to be imbued with the holiness of Hashem. Torah tells us that Moshe grew up in the house of Pharaoh and tells us how this rather unlikely state of affairs happened, but the Torah doesn't tell us why. Clearly, though, Hashem has a plan so far beyond our understanding. Look, Pharaoh decreed that all the nation's boys should be drowned, but God worked out that the nation's redeemer is growing up in his very house, under his nose, so to speak, and saved by his very own daughter. And from this very house, he will go out to his brothers and ultimately lead them and deliver them the Torah. We can see what's directly in front of us, but not the eventual results. As to all of Moshe's early years, the ever-economical Torah, careful with words, only shares with us 3 incidents. Moshe's killing of an Egyptian who was striking a Hebrew man, his confrontation with 2 Hebrew men who were fighting, and his intervention with and saving of Yitro's daughters. The common thread in all 3 incidents is the insight into Moshe's nature and inherent inner qualities of justice, honesty, and a compassionate, open heart, all proper attributes for a prophet, for one whom Hashem will deem worthy and choose to manifest knowledge of his presence in this world. A lot more must have happened to the young Moshe, but as usual, between the lines is as important as the line themselves. These stories were chosen by Torah for inclusion, not because they're in a particular chronological order, but because together they form the introduction for us to understand the background question of where Moshe came from, more specifically, from where emanated his great spirit, of his great strength, his preparedness to undertake what was to become such a great and complex mission. The Torah also doesn't tell us when, at what point, Moshe found out that he was a Jew. Nor do we know how this developed, how his feelings grew stronger, until he reached the point that he felt he had to help his people. On verse 11 of chapter 2, the verse states that Moshe saw their suffering, and Rashi simply comments, he directed his eyes and heart to their suffering. In other words, Rashi means, he saw doesn't refer to physical sight, but rather to deep consideration. His natural inclination, as shown by the 3 stories the Torah does provide, was an inability to countenance any injustice, and he was overcome with compassion for the suffering of his brethren. Why did Moshe merit that God appointed him to be Israel's Redeemer? Ask the sages. And they answer, because he participated in their suffering. Later, at Moshe's first meeting with Hashem, he turns to see the wonder of the bush that's burning but not consumed. The verse, chapter 3 and verse 4, states, and Hashem saw that he turned to see. A deeper homiletical understanding of this verse is that it refers not only to Moshe's turning to see the bush, but to his earlier turning, to his making the effort to see the suffering of his people. States the Midrash, Hashem declared, because you dropped everything to turn to see them, I will drop everything to turn and talk with you. This, then, is all we need to know about how Moshe became Moshe Rabbeinu, the type of person whom Hashem seeks out to talk with. And this is what, in Hashem's eyes, makes a leader of his people worthy of being a leader.